Recording. Good evening, everyone. I'm using my bleeding ring light thing. I mean, it is quite good, I have to say. Obviously, I haven't got the overhead light on, otherwise that would just be messing with things. It's pretty much pitch black outside at 6:23 p.m. I know. I mean, having lived in Scotland, like I shouldn't like be like even hinting at like the idea that I might be complaining about this, but it really does get, it just takes you by surprise. I think I mentioned that already a couple of times, maybe in every single friggin' episode, but never mind. Sorry if I'm a bit of a repeating. Sorry if I repeat myself sometimes. I don't make scripts for these. I just talk on the fly about whatever comes to mind. Down the track, I may look at whether I want to rethink that strategy. However, I sort of feel to an extent like I know from my own experience, and so once again talking about my history, back when I used to be a scientist, I mean, I literally flew all over the world to present my scientific data at conferences, and so I became very adept at public speaking in a sort of sense. Back then I never really struggled with it per se, but it was interesting when I was doing my honors year, because we all had to give like a 20-minute seminar as a part of our our assessment for our honors, and I noticed that it was the people that had the most notes that struggled the most. And so I sort of decided that I would not ever do that, basically. My tactic in the early days was just to rehearse. And I always like the point at which I knew I'd rehearsed enough was the point at which, when I was looking at a PowerPoint slide, I immediately knew what was coming next. And that's when I would say, all right, that's enough rehearsal. I'll just go out and do it and hope that it comes out all right. And most times it did. I mean, occasionally I said some slightly silly things, I think I said that some results were dodgy once and everyone laughed, but I mean, for the main part, if you know what you're talking about, and you know the sequence of your slides, I never struggled to give presentations. Obviously here, I'm not making PowerPoint presentations. That would be incredibly boring. As if just sitting here watching me isn't boring enough. But imagine if I just had some PowerPoint, with prompts, that would just be even worse. I think. I don't know. Let me know what you think. If you think you'd like that, then maybe. But it's not really the style that I want to use. I want to talk to you about what's on my mind, basically. I feel like that's when I'm at my best, and also I feel like it's when I'm at my most authentic. I will have whenever I'm giving a formal presentation, I have a tendency to just automatically switch on this sort of it's like I always used to talk about my mum. My mum used to have a totally normal Australian accent, except when she was on the phone to certain people, when she would all of a sudden get quite posh. and it was often if she was talking to someone from the government, or any type of person that she perceived to be of status. So doctors, I guess lawyers, not that I ever heard her talk to a lawyer that I know of, but, and occasionally she would have to phone, the Telstra or Telecom as it was called back then, because the phone lines had gone out or whatever. Or I say call them, but then how do you call them when the phone lines have gone out? That makes no sense. Or she would call the power company or something. Anyway, and out would come the posh. And I always think it was really funny as a kid. I never mocked her for it. I never even brought it up. I just noticed it and then would go, would just smile to myself about it later. And over the years, talking to different friends of mine, and they would relay similar stories about their parents. And then as an adult, I found myself doing it. Big time, even worse than my mum. I wouldn't do like the posh accent like my mum did. Mum would actually start doing like she was from England, kind of like there would be a distinct accent. But I noticed that I had a particular, shall we call it a persona, that I would deploy when I was, conversing, especially over the phone, with someone that I perceived to be an authority figure or who I wanted something from, which are usually one and the same. So yeah, and I was slightly horrified at first, and then I thought, no, you know what it is? It's just that, when you grow up, if you ever taught anything about etiquette, and look, I think etiquette's a load of garbage. I don't believe we should be teaching our children etiquette in the sense that we teach them etiquette, or that I was taught etiquette by my parents. I think most of the etiquette stuff is like Victorian era garbage from England and is irrelevant in the cultural context of today. However, that being said, obviously saying things like please and thank you are just very good ways to encourage people to listen to you, treat you well, continue to engage with you, and ultimately help you with whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. So, I mean, I'm one of these people that sits in the camp of less formal rules, less dogma, less, principles and training and whatever around this stuff, and more just like bringing our kids up to, to realize that sometimes in life, if you're asking someone for a favor, you really need to say please, because if you don't, they're probably going to look at you like, like they're waiting. And you may well get a no when the answer might otherwise be yes. And so those are lessons that kids can learn pretty easily, actually. And I think that once learned, they really would not, wildly disobey them. At least not until they're significantly older and they've whittled their friend group down to a group of people who never use any sort of any please, thank you, sort of type. There's a word for those sorts of words. Gratuities. That's not the word I'm thinking of. But anyway, if you surround yourself with people that, for example, swear like sailors for long enough, you'll start swearing like a sailor. I had an experience once when I was in America. It was like the second time that I was there. Anyway, I was in Seattle. I was staying in Seattle for about 6 weeks because I was actually working over there in a lab, and towards the end, I was starting to speak with an American accent, and I found myself having to apologize. Well, I mean, saying having to apologize, but I found myself catching myself mid-sentence talking to an American colleague or whatever in an American accent, catching myself and saying, "Oh, look, I'm so sorry. I hope you don't think that I'm taking the piss out of you. This is a totally subconscious thing that my brain has just started doing. I think because I've been here for a while now and I've just gotten so used to hearing that accent that, it started spilling out my mouth, but I really hope that you realize that I'm not doing it on purpose, and I'm not mocking you, and I'm in no way sort of mimicking you, and I am listening to you. It just took, it just happened. And it happened on several occasions towards the end of that trip. And I was kind of stunned because okay, we speak the same language, and it wasn't like I hadn't heard plenty of American accents, like from television. Like during my developmental years, I pretty much exclusively watched American television. It was always, most of my favorite shows were American, and movies as well and stuff, and so I heard a lot of American accents, so I was very familiar with what an American accent, or a generic, I should say, what is probably best expressed as a northern Californian accent, because as we know, the accents get wild and wackier in different parts of the country. Not as much so as in England. It's even worse over there. I mean, not that it's a bad thing. Like, an accent's never a bad thing. It's just I find accents to be fascinating, and especially in a country like the UK, where it's so small. It's such a small country. So it's crazy to think that, like, you can travel literally from like the south, from Bristol in the very south of England, and only go as far as somewhere like Wales. Oh, and my gosh, their accent sounds like they just took a bunch of accents, stuck them in a blender, and then that's what came out. And then you travel to places like Leeds, Liverpool, Newcastle, even like Kent and places like that have very distinct accents. Like, there are so many accents across the continent of the United Kingdom. And I haven't even gotten to Scotland and Ireland yet. I find it really interesting. I find it really interesting. But then again, the UK has like 600 odd years of human settlement for these accents to have formed. And obviously prior to the train, there was no good way to get from place to place. So most people would have, lots of people would have lived their entire life, like stayed in one region. And so would not have like had the exposure to other accents, but also would have had a lot of time to practice the regional accent. Then you go to a place like America, right, which is a much younger country, and yet still, Boston's got a crazy accent. New York's got a pretty strong accent, and then you head into the southern states. Boy, there's some accents down there, and I find it's culturally so fascinating to me. Like, I probably should have studied sociology instead of social work, but it's a far less practical degree, and if you actually want to get a job, and plus I actually want to help people, so Anyway, all of that's a complete aside. I'm going to get on to the subject of tonight's podcast, which is I had it in my, see if I'd made a PowerPoint presentation. I would remember without having to recall it. No, so I thought that I would talk about technology. Can technology help us with our self-growth, self-development journey? Is it a useful adjunct, or is it just making us think that it's helping but not actually really offering the richness, a level of depth or richness that we actually need, to guide us in these processes. So I'm not gonna diss on. Well, I will diss. Look. I will give my opinion about a few applications. I've pretty much had every self-help app that's ever popped up on Google Play, or at least at one point I had. I'd pretty much downloaded them all, tried them all, especially the meditation and mindfulness ones. I went through like a bunch, like trying to find one that had a the meditation, like the guided meditation, the person's voice who was doing it didn't really annoy me. Now I have Waking Up, which is Sam Harris's one. It's not a bad app. It's not bad. It's expensive, but Sam Harris is really good. Like, you can basically get it for free if you tell him that you can't afford it, or you can I said, look, I can afford some money, but not as much as you guys want for this. And they said, well, we'll offer you a scholarship, which is so I pay $60 a year for 12, for $60 for 12 months subscription to the app, which is not too bad. There's quite a lot of content on the app. I use it a bit. I've done, I think, 24 of the, I presume unlimited almost, guided meditations. There's some quite interesting people on there. Mind Valley I used to have, and look, I get their emails all the time. I follow them. I know there's a bunch of really well-respected people who host their content on Mind Valley. It's really expensive. And I did contact them and said, look, I'm a student and I can't afford that, but I'll pay slightly less. And they got back to me and said, we can't do that, but maybe in the meantime you could do these things which we offer for free on our website. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, let's roll my eyes. And I don't know, but I have attended a couple of their workshop things when they've had live, when they've done live workshops, and they've had some really good people on there. Dr. John DeMartini, who doesn't do anything for free, but is quite a remarkable, I think, person in the self-development space. He's a very learned scholar. I mean, definitely born with a silver spoon, but he's dedicated his life to this. And I think he is quite good. And he's on Mind Valley. I think Deepak Chopra. I can never pronounce that. The one that Oprah loves the most. Deepak Chopra. Yes, him. He's on there. And a bunch of others, I'm sure, as well. Look, if you're cashed up, it might be worth checking it out. I can't really speak for it because I don't have it at present. When it comes to artificial intelligence-based apps, I'm going to just say don't even bother, and certainly don't spend money. Don't spend your money on them. Don't spend your money on them. Generative AI is not at the stage yet where it has the ability to be accurate, to speak with a breadth of understanding or knowledge. And at the end of the day, chat-gpt, and look, I pay for chat-gpt 4 off the new, there's an even newer one. It's 4 Delta or something like that, I pay for that because I wanted to know if it would be better than ChatGPT 3, because everybody kept telling me how great ChatGPT was, but every time I used it, it told me lies, or it was irritating the shit out of me, to be honest. I mean, there've been a couple of occasions on which ChatGPT has been quite interesting. A couple of occasions it's been somewhat helpful, and then other times when I've just been playing with it, we had a really good chat about true crime content on streaming services the other day. For that sort of thing, it seems to be all right. But here's the thing, it's scraping available web pages for its data source. Now, what's available and accessible on the web does not represent anywhere near the whole body of literature that one would ideally want to be referencing when dealing with any subject matter that has to do with psychology, with self-development, with medicine, so it can access some of those alternate GPTs can access abstracts, but they can't access full text manuscripts. So, and the thing is that it will always speak with authority and tell you something, and quite often what it tells you is just its best guess, but it won't always, but it doesn't make that clear. They have actually now recently, I noticed, put a little disclaimer at the bottom of the chat-gpt page which says information provided may not always be accurate. That didn't used to exist. I really wish that it would be just a bit more honest about its confidence level. So you know, if you ask chat-gpt, you know, I don't know, a question about, say for example, you know, how popular a particular resort in Ibiza is at a particular time of the year, it will tell you, and then it can tell you how confident it is in giving you those results. So in other words, is it giving you, is it just guessing? Is it approximating a figure based on what it can access, but that may be old data, if it's data at all, or has it actually managed to scrape some real data that is accurate and up to date, and so it has the ability to speak with the level of confidence with which it is written, which is always highly authoritative and very decisive. So I wish that's something that I would like to see built into GPTs, all GPTs in the future, is a confident, you know, is essentially a confidence level, and also citations. You know, you can now ask GPT-4 where did it get its information from, and it will usually tell you, and that usually then immediately tells at least me that I'm wasting my time trying to get my information out of chat-gpt. But you know, I think it's like any new technology, you know, when it comes out, everyone's using it, and it's all the rage, it's all the buzz, everyone's talking about it. It's really still in beta testing, guys. Like, you know, large language models have been around for a while in theory, but it's only been in the last like 5 years that the computing power has gotten good enough to actually make them workable in real time, and also they rely on existing data, and that data has to be scraped from the web and has to be transposed into a database type format, presumably. I don't know exactly how they work, but I do know that like the technology is still very much emerging. It's a disruptive technology. It's an emergent technology. So just don't use it to choose what stocks to buy or whether to trade in your Bitcoin or anything like that. Please don't do that. You're much better off just like either asking someone you know who's like an established trader, or gut instinct, or trying to start following the charts yourself. Don't allow it to become your own personal Dr. Phil, you know, is basically what I'm saying. Not that Dr. Phil isn't fallible either, you see. This is the thing, like, we're all fallible. Computers are just fallible in a different way to humans, and it turns out that these AI engines are fallible in more catastrophic ways actually than humans tend to be. I mean, I suppose that that's a bit unfair, but I have noticed, for example, when using a talk-to-text, you know, Google talk-to-text drives me up the wall. I complain about it on a nearly daily basis. Why do I complain about it? Because it's been around for like 10 years now, and as far as I can tell, during that 10-year period, Google have made one significant improvement to their talk-to-text engine. And by the way, when it first came out, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was brilliant. I couldn't believe how good it was. However, it couldn't handle punctuation. It has remedied that. It now can handle punctuation. Other than that, I don't think it's gotten a single lick better. And however, because it is there's an element in the algorithm that says if the translation is deleted and then they attempt a retranslation, next time give them something different. And I've noticed that if you have to do this a couple of times, it'll start to get really wacky with the things that it suggests, like way wacky. Like we're talking like words that aren't even in the English vernacular, that don't have the same, letter construction or that don't sound the same. I mean, it will start to come up with all sorts of strange things, if pushed. AI engines, it seems like they get stressed out real easy, and when they do, they go totally postal. and if you don't know what I'm talking about, try asking chat-gpt a question that it can't handle, and then keep asking it about it, and see if you can reproduce it yourself. Or for that matter, if you just Google like chat-gpt fails or something like that, or you'll see a million, maybe not a million, but you'll certainly find post threads on Reddit and other forums where people talk about when chat-gpt just went postal on them, like, and it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. It would be more funny if it wasn't for the fact that everybody seems to be thinking that they can use it as their personal lawyer and their personal doctor and their personal psychologist and all of this stuff. Like, do not do that. In the same way that hopefully by now not to use the internet to self-diagnose an illness. Don't use chat-gpt either. It's no better. It's no better. Yet. Yeah, maybe in the future, but I still think that the chance that a man-made machine will ever be able to be more capable than collective knowledge is almost zero. Now, that doesn't mean that chat-gpt might not be a way more personal, effective personal therapist than a psychologist that you went to see that you might pay a bunch of money for. Because let's face it, I mean, unfortunately, in every industry and psychology, in my experience at least, is one of the worst for this. Other countries it may be different. Clinical psychologists are often way out of their way over out of their depths, and don't have that much to offer. But we'll try to keep you talking and continue the sessions anyway, just so that they can keep line their back pockets. And that sounds horrible, I know. And it's not that I don't think that they want to help people. It's just that I think that they need to have enough self-awareness, so that when a certain person comes into their office and when it has certain problems, they can say, look, I don't feel like I'm in a position to really offer you the kind of support and help that you might need. Let me refer you to a colleague, or let me, just to admit when they're in over their own heads, I mean, I think the world would just be a better place in general if people did that. If everybody, when they were drowning, put their hand up and said, help, rather than just nah, it's fine. I'm sure I'll problem solve this one, as the waves crash over them again and again and again. I mean, there's nothing wrong with not having the answers. There's nothing wrong with not being able to find a solution to all your own problems. There's nothing wrong with being in over your head, no matter how experienced you are. Even if you've reached the level that someone is calling you an expert, never be afraid to admit that something is just outside of your area of expertise, and that you either need to consult with someone else to help to get a good answer, or you need to refer them to someone else. I think it should just be professional courtesy. in every profession. But of course, that's not how the world works, is it? So anyway, so back to the main topic at hand, which is technology and personal growth. I think that probably the best technology-based applications for personal growth, or, you know, to incorporate into your personal growth, I guess, regime, would be maybe some sort of a calendar / journaling app. If you like to, I mean, I don't like journaling on my phone because I mean, like I said, I mean, I don't like texting. I find Google Talk Text to be just too bad at, I mean, it's just not a very good translator. However, your phone's with you all the time. And like, you know, and I always have a journal, but like I don't carry it with me. And so if I'm not carrying it with me, it's not always available to me. So, you know, I have used them in the past. And they have been quite good. I think that those daily mood check-in type apps where, you know, where every day, you know, you just pop onto it like maybe twice a day and you say how you're feeling, and it's usually, and it's uncomplicated, so that you can track over a month or so, like if you have periods of low mood, and then you can also look for patterns and see whether those periods of low mood tended to coincide with like cycles of the moon, for example, or with menstrual cycles, for example, or with like for me, like I experience low mood at the time when the sun sets and for about an hour thereafter. That's a thing for me. I realized that years ago, and nothing has changed. It can be useful to gain some insight, you know, with those sorts of things. And also, if your emotional intelligence, I hate that word, by the way, if your emotional vocabulary is not particularly large and your familiarity with your emotions is somewhat limited, and what I mean by that is, if you know when you're feeling sad, and you know when you're feeling angry, and you know when you're feeling jealous, and you know when you're feeling hurt, but you don't really have a conception of other feelings that are milder and more subtle and probably come before or after those big emotions that I talked about, I think some of those apps that are emotional intelligence type apps, you know, where, you know, that can help you to identify those things, you know, it can help you to learn to identify, you know, those more subtle emotions. And look, putting a name on something doesn't make it go away. However, it is useful to know. It is useful when we're trying to make the connection between, okay, I'm feeling like this, because often we don't feel any particular emotion. We just feel crappy. You know, we just feel crappy. And it's like, why do I feel crappy? I don't know. I don't know. Don't know. And you know, and so sometimes it can be that there are subtle emotions at play. And so learning to associate physiological changes with particular emotions, and also emotional triggers, you know, certain things will tend to trigger people, and cause certain emotions to pop up. And the more aware you are of your triggers, the more aware you are of the bodily sensations that you experience before, during, and after the emotion, the more adept you'll become at developing healthy coping strategies, because then it's almost like you're pre-warned and you know what's happening. And you're like, oh, it's all right. Like, it's just a bit of I'm just slightly irritated, or I'm just slightly morose. But it will pass. It will pass. and practice, then you can, pull out the self-soothing and all of, so it can just be very helpful, like when we're trying to, deal with like a constant flux of emotions, some of which we have names for and some of which we don't. And to help us ultimately to develop healthy coping strategies, get rid of all our unhealthy coping strategies. I say that as I'm sitting here with a nicotine vaporizer. Yeah, I know. Nobody's perfect, right? Oh, God, I hope I never gave you the impression that I thought I was perfect. God. I wouldn't even want to. That's a horrible thought. God. But anyway, like I've got bad habits, of course. I've got bad habits. I have, I drink iced coffee instead of having breakfast. I don't exercise much, although I have been to the gym twice in the past week, for 20 minutes each time on the treadmill, so which is the first time in decades. But and it was a deliberate thing that I did, first I had to buy shoes, which was a funny story actually, but I won't go into it because it's not the point of this video, and I do want to, as I said in my first video, try and keep these on the short side. But it's a funny story about the shoes anyway. So I had to get a pair of trainers because the only sneakers that I have are Converse All-Stars. Not really ideal for doing any type of physical activity. I didn't run on the treadmill. I walked briskly, but zero support. So I knew I had to get some new shoes. That was a bit of a process, but then once I did it, I actually went down the first time and then a subsequent time, and so look, I'm pretty happy with that, and both times it was good. I took my music down with me, and I was the only one there, fortunately, because it was during the day, and pushed it out 20 minutes on the treadmill, not a hell of a lot, but better than nothing. So but other than that, look, I don't have a very healthy I don't have the healthiest lifestyle. I eat pretty well. Aside from the fact that I don't eat breakfast and just drink iced coffee instead. I vape nicotine. I drink the occasional glass of wine. But I don't consider that really to be unhealthy because it's so infrequent, and and honestly, when I say glass, I'm talking less than a standard drink, and it's just with dinner, and usually with friends, that I'll have a drink. I will have a glass of red wine. It doesn't lead to me going on a drinking binge. I can't even remember the last time I was intoxicated. It would have been 20 or more years ago, from alcohol, I mean. And yeah, so I've got a few, obviously I've got a few, I guess, bad habits, but bad habits aren't the point of this video. The point of this video is your well-being. And although, yes, certain habits can exacerbate or can be hurdles to you achieving overall better mental, emotional, spiritual well-being, they're not always. Sometimes they are symptoms of your relatively poor mental, emotional, spiritual well-being. I mean, we all know about that. Self-medicating, well, maybe not all of us, but I sure as hell do. But I don't know that they're often causative unless they are quite extreme. Certain narcotic addictions, obviously, being probably the exception to that rule. So I feel like it might be useful to have on your phone a mindfulness app for guided meditation. I'm still trying to break into it, like to get past, I mean, it's not, I am getting better at it, but I'm nowhere close to being good at it yet, I feel like I said, it maybe a journaling app might be quite helpful. I feel like one of those mood tracker apps might be quite helpful, and perhaps a subscription based app that offers access to some of the sort of gurus that you don't see for free on the internet. That being said, the only one I subscribe to, like I said, is Waking Up, and that's not really the style of the Waking Up app. So they don't have like self-help gurus on there, that app is more about mindfulness. But then, but they do have like guests. They do have certain guests on there that do. There's all different formats of things, but mostly it's just them talking. And so there'll be, a number of episodes where they're talking about a particular subject matter or a particular experience or whatever, but honestly, like the most famous person on there, aside from the person whose app it is, Sam Harris, is Amanda Knox. And she's terrific, by the way. She's amazing. I think she's an incredible woman. And she's very, very good on the app. But there's no big name self-help spiritual gurus on there or anything, whereas Mind Valley have got a number of them on board. So, but I just don't think that I just don't think that you should be spending your money on that stuff, at least not initially, because it's not going to be it's not going to be the magic bullet. It's not going to be like an all stop, shop one, it's like anything else in this space, always be wary of things that promise you the world and cost a fortune, but won't give you their content for free on a trial basis, so you can at least see whether it's worth paying the money for. And also, I just don't think that people should be making money out of this stuff. I mean, I think it's okay for them to make enough for their own subsistence, but I don't think they should be getting rich, off the back of it. But unfortunately, there's so many people out there who are lost, who are looking for answers, who are looking for support, who are looking for, advice and encouragement, a new way to live, and so predators in the space like Andrew Tate, promising young men the world in exchange for information that is essentially trying to coerce them in, or trying to convince them that they should do something that is not only immoral but illegal. People like that are going to arise. They're going to, whenever there is a lot of people, even if the majority of people in the space aren't super wealthy, believe it or not, there's no app out there that's primary market is people who are making a lot of money, because they're only a very small number of people to start with. But secondly, they don't need an app. What do they, they wouldn't even bother, it's middle income and upper lower middle income earners are the ones who they target. And they target people who are lonely, and they target people who are slightly desperate. And I just think that's really sad, if they're making big bucks off the back of other people's attempts to get out of the rut that they know that they're in, That's just my 2 cents anyway. So anyway, tell me about your experiences with chat-gpt. I'd be really curious to know. What do you think of it? Have you found it to be good? Have you found it to be good? Has it done something cool? Have you had a cool conversation with it? Have you experienced it having a meltdown? And also, let me know in the comments about any self-development apps that you personally recommend, and why. Because I'm always curious. I know that there's always new ones coming out. I don't regularly go looking for them anymore because, like I said, at one stage I had pretty much every single one that was on the Google Play Store on my phone and tried them all and decided that most of them were really not worth paying for, even though it was much cheaper back then, but also were really barely scraping the surface of anything. However, many years have gone by since then. I'm not totally down, and I don't have a comprehensive knowledge of everything that's out there at the moment. So if you've got one that you like, or two or three, or the whole library, or let me know in the comments. I'm really curious to hear. All right, okay, well, good night, everyone. Can you guys see my cat there, Lily, in the background? Oh, there she is. Look at her, sweetheart. I named her after Lily Allen because as I was driving her back from the RSPCA where I adopted her from, YouTube Music, it was an automatically generated playlist, and a Lily Allen song came on, and so I thought, oh, Lily, that's going to be your name. Anyway, all right, good night, everyone. Happy Friday for tomorrow. I hope everyone has a good weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.